Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're kind of stepping into the shoes of an incredibly avid gardener named Aang. We're going to see exactly how a totally mundane, everyday moment, just hanging out by the side of the road, transformed into this absolutely fascinating botanical observation.
So our source material for this actually comes directly from Aang's personal gardening journal, which was published on July 18, 2026. And just look at that opening greeting, Dear Interweb. Combine that intimate, diary-like tone with the fact that this is literally entry number 959. Yeah, that instantly tells us we're dealing with someone who is deeply, deeply dedicated to observing the natural world.
The scene itself is just so highly relatable. You know the drill, running errands, stuck waiting by the roadside. But while most of us, let's be honest, would probably just default to doom scrolling on our phones to pass the time, Aang actually does something different. Instead, Aang chooses to really look around and explore the surrounding landscaping.
And right there, literally sandwiched between the hot asphalt and the everyday hustle of the street, Aang spots a recent bloom of the yellow walking iris. And it wasn't just like a single lone survivor holding on. An entire patch was absolutely thriving in this super unlikely concrete-heavy environment.
Okay, let's dive into this plant specifically for a second. Scientifically, it's known as Trimezia longifolia. And fun fact, this actually wasn't a first-time discovery for Aang. Because it was documented previously in journal entries 757 and 666, this roadside encounter was actually more like a reunion with an old botanical friend.
But, that common name really begs an obvious question, right? Walking iris? I mean, we get the yellow part, we get the iris part, but how exactly does a plant walk? No way it just gets up and moves, right?
Well, the name actually points to this brilliant method of propagation. Basically, it develops these small plantlets right at the base. As they grow and gain weight, the stems literally bend down, touch the soil, and take root. So it effectively allows the whole plant to walk outward over time. It's like a slow-motion march. Curiously, though, Aang specifically noted that none of these little plants were actually visible on this particular roadside patch.
And because those plantlets were missing, Aang wrote something pretty great. I would have likely taken a specimen for evaluation purposes if I had. I love this. It just perfectly captures that relentless curiosity of a botanist, They're always ready to just scoop up a field sample for a hands-on structural evaluation right then and there.
Which actually brings us to the plant's most deceptive trait. I mean, nature loves a good look-alike, right? And the yellow walking iris is involved in this classic case of mistaken botanical identity. It's the kind of thing that requires a truly keen eye to catch.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when we place the ground orchid side by side with the yellow walking iris. Just look at that. The visual mimicry is simply striking. Honestly, a casual observer just glancing at the petal structure could so easily confuse the two, totally assuming they were close relatives. But despite that crazy morphological similarity, their lineages are completely distinct, like night and day. The ground orchid sits squarely over in the Orchidaceae family, while the yellow walking iris belongs entirely to the Iridaceae family. And recognizing this divergence is absolutely vital, because it dictates entirely different biological habits and, for gardeners, totally different cultivation care.
So, to document this exact difference right then and there, Aang attempted some impromptu macro photography with a brand new mobile camera. But, in a highly relatable twist of technological betrayal, you know how it goes. The camera simply refused to focus close enough to capture those intricate petal structures needed to really discuss the family differences.
But hey, a failed macro photo definitely doesn't end the journey. Not for a gardener. Instead, this brief little roadside observation instantly morphed into a brand new cultivation project. It's all about that forward-looking mindset.
So the plan of action is immediate. First, keep the species on a pending list. That naturally sparks step 2. An upcoming field trip to some local plant nurseries. The primary mission, to officially acquire a yellow walking iris specimen of their own, and finally capture those elusive, high-quality macro photos for a future discussion. It really just illustrates the continuous, never-ending journey of a passionate gardener. What started as just a boring wait by the side of the road resulted in a deep dive into botanical families, fascinating propagation mechanisms, and just the pure joy of continuous discovery. So I want to leave you with this question. What overlooked botanical wonders are hiding on your own daily commute? Seriously, next time you're waiting by the roadside, just look a little closer at the landscaping. You might just find your own everyday discovery. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.